Collective Awakening podcast.
Sharing truth and knowledge in this time of conscious awakening.
With Chris and Stephen. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast. Chris and Stephen here. Absolute pleasure to welcome our guest on this episode, Cedric. He is a holistic coach and he comes to us from Austria. So welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast. And it'd be great if you could just introduce some of the work that you do as a holistic coach.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, exactly. I'm currently in Austria here in Vienna, beautiful Vienna. Really enjoying my time here a lot. Really found a good base for now here in the city. And yeah, also I'm working as a holistic coach, like you said. I'm also working as a yoga teacher here in Austria, in Vienna. And yeah, what can I say about myself? I've been working mostly online with my clients, but I'm also trying to build it up here in Vienna. The idea is to this understanding that the body and the mind are so interconnected and everything goes hand in hand. So it only makes sense for me to approach all of that in this holistic kind of way, with the focus which is a lot on inner child work and emotional intelligence. So understanding more about how we can deal with the situations in our lives that are currently going on with the emotional capacity to understand that no emotion are bad in any ways. They just help us to experience life fully and to really feel what is actually going on with what the emotions want to teach us. And the inner child work part connects to that because of exactly the problem that most of us have never really learned how to properly do that, to feel, to let these emotions run through the system, to inform us, and to not be in conflict with them, trying to push them away or trying to avoid them, because this is also where all of these limiting beliefs and these emotional wounds that we often still carry from this childhood or youth, because at one point we didn't have this emotional capacity to feel by ourselves, and we also often also didn't have this connection or this guidance of grown-ups or other caregivers to help us move through that. And so to learn to do that again is the beautiful and interesting and powerful part of the work that I do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so pleased that you started there, because just as I came across some of your work and your journey that's unfolded, that I was very drawn to how much you talk about that inner child healing work, which I feel is so fundamental, and so much that can manifest in our lives now that can come from that wounded inner child, and the loops and such. So when we talk about that, how can we begin to recognize that? Because there are those that would, I don't know if we'd say not always be aware of it, but say, oh, my childhood was absolutely fine, for example. There was no problem, but there might be patterns that lead back to that in some way.
Yeah, 100%. Also, it was similar for myself. Like I never really had it in my mind that there were like adverse childhood experiences or any trauma or whatever. Also, like I didn't have this full view on, or like lot of vivid memories about my childhood. It was always sometimes like these flashbacks or memories came up, but like just thinking about it, it was rarely like really super vivid. And this is also like actually was like one of the signs that because at some points our system's best option was to dissociate, was to not be fully there, to avoid this overwhelm of emotions. And so this is like one of the things that already might guide us into the direction of, okay, there might be something going on. But at the same time, also with my work is not just going out into the past just to stir up some old shit. It's more about understanding what is actually going on in our lives at the moment, to see and to understand that the things that are working well and the things that we are really struggling with is basically this representation of our mental state, like everything that is stored and programmed in the conscious and subconscious mind. And so it is often just a repetition of these old programs, of these old situations. And so also with the struggles that we see in our current life, it's basically this invitation of life to see, okay, okay, this thing has been coming up a lot. So maybe this time you look at it, you see what the emotional component is behind it, and see what might need to be processed still.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the as with anything, it's the here and the now, how it's going to impact our lives now, and there seems more than ever now, so many recognizing that they're in they're not people that are seeking to be happy and seeking balance in their life and recognizing that it isn't there for some reason or not as well. And I feel that's why there's an importance in whatever we wish to call ourselves, coaches, etc., people who can assist those who want to reach out and do that work and recognize those patterns in their life that they really want to break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And like just before we started with the interview, I was thinking how again on how this whole thing started, and it was actually in this kind of it was a psychedelic retreat, because you were talking about Cambo, but it was
Yeah.
a lot had worked with ayahuasca as well, and this starting of, yeah, for me was this kind of just being stuck in that old job. I didn't really fully like, not at all actually, have a view on what my life should actually look like, what I want to do, what I want to share. And everything seemed kind of dull also, and not really. It was, everything was okay basically. But
Yeah.
this also, when I started to work with inner child work back then and also afterwards, it it helped me realize that I was really empathic as a child, and I really had a lot of sense for the pain of others and the world. And so at some point, this was just too much for me to handle. So I decided, or back then I decided to kind of cut myself off from that, to not be overwhelmed by that pain. And so that's also where you kind of lose the connection to the uplifting, supporting and
Yeah.
loving emotions. And so it only goes both ways. And so that was just something I realized when I was thinking about that. So
Yeah. No,
it's a
I
beautiful work
think
that you guys do.
Oh, thank you. And it's an absolute honor because, like yourselves, of receiving Cambo and sitting with plant medicines, that they are a wonderful opportunity for us to be shown sort of where we're at and find ourselves again, to
Exactly.
remember. And I think you put it very well. That sort of, it's like a feeling of coasting. We're okay, but
Mm.
it's there is more, so it's expanding our view. That's what I
Mhm.
feel can happen. Then it expands that view, saying, well, what if there's more? What if we should be experiencing more? uh
Mhm.
100%. So I'm just going to hand over to Stephen.
Mhm.
So really fascinating to listen, because I think it's definitely a topic that a lot of people are talking about, and it's something that me and Chris feel really passionate that we sort of in this time now, in this collective awakening, that we can't avoid. You know, our parents, grandparents, they were very good at sort of avoiding those patterns and that inner
Mm.
child work, and a lot of us have come back in those families to try to help break some of those patterns. But I just want to talk a little bit about what emotions are, because I feel that, I don't know if you found this in your inner child work, about how can we manage our emotions. We do seem to live in a world of people reacting all the time to each other, not always in a great way. So what are emotions? Where does that come from? And where does that come from the inner child? Do we inherit that from our parents? Is that a cultural thing? What's your thoughts on that about emotions?
Yeah, basically for me, emotions, like from what I see now and learned, is that they're basically a gift of life for us to really be able to understand life, to really experience life fully. And this is like, it goes back to what I was saying. This is how I really got into contact with life a lot more when I was starting to do that inner child work, which is in my work based on that emotional intelligence, learning that learning how we can feel these emotions again, see how they just want to be there, they want to be experienced, they want to share some message with us, they want to move energy in motion, they want to be fluid in the body, really be felt, experienced, and that's where we realize that there are no emotions that are bad in any way when we at least fully accept and feel them. So even anger is such a powerful energy. Like, you just imagine that fiery energy that we can use to create life with, that we can protect ourselves, hold our boundaries, and protect others as well. And then also fear just helps us to really be fully aware of whatever is going on. Like, this happened in a plant medicine ceremony as well. Like, this kind of, I was thinking, okay, is that fear now? Because I'm just fully aware. Actually, I'm just fully aware of whatever is going on. And that's a powerful thing to have. And it's just when we don't have the full connection to these emotions, we try to push them away, we try to avoid them, and we try to we cannot, when we did get the message of you don't have to be sad, or don't be so angry, or don't be so loud, we learn to avoid these emotions, but you can never suppress them. And that's where they have to show themselves in not these supportive ways, like anger. It can be really destructive as well, but it doesn't have to be. And so this is this is a really big part we have to understand again, and learn how to feel whatever's going on. And then especially because you were asking about the situations in our lives when we are not super well behaved with others, because then when these emotions are super intense, that's where we can also realize, okay, this might be not actually what is going on. It might be just a reflection of some old situation, of where an old belief of, okay, I'm not being heard by that other person, I'm not being seen. That's when we really get emotionally triggered. That's also often a sign that this is an old topic that is just resurfacing again.
And what you don't heal, we found that, what you don't heal, you project, you attract. And you find this even with relationships as well, don't you? You end up, whatever you think you're avoiding, you end up attracting in your career, in your work, in your relationship, in your friendships. And people end up being your great teachers as a reflection to what you're not healing. So those patterns are going to keep happening until you face it, so you can't avoid it. And this is why we're in a time of you can't avoid it. So what kind of advisements, there'll be people, there'll be parents listening to these podcasts, and they will have children. What can parents do to help their children with their emotions? What kind of advisement can parents give their children, and to themselves in many ways as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like always in like workshops where I just introduce the whole thing. I'm always just asking them, like, how would they do that? How would they be with their own child or a friend's child which is so hurt or so angry? Like, we would be so compassionate, we would be loving, we would try to hold the space there. We would allow them to we would not tell them to just don't be angry, like most of us maybe have learned or have heard in childhood, but to be there for them, hold their space with them, because they just need this co-regulation which is happening by itself when we are just present, not trying to be somewhere where we aren't, not trying to push the emotions away, and breathing is the key component in that whole work. Breathing, feeling, also like getting in contact with the body, feeling how this energy is how this energy is feeling, how this energy wants to move, or where it actually is. Really just being curious about that, and helping the child also to do the same thing, to yeah, because it just needs that space. And some studies show that emotions, they from their come up to until they are resolved, or until they can the reaction in our body reduces again, it can be done in like 90 seconds, 2 minutes, if we really have that space and that emotional intelligence, that presence. And the breath always helps us to do that.
I think
Yeah,
that's sorry. Could I just interject there, because it's
yeah,
something
sure.
that I feel really passionate about as well, as a sort of practicing meditator, how beneficial breath work is. And I think it's something that I think sometimes, even as parents, and I don't have children, but I've got nieces and nephews, and sometimes children don't need to be told, they just need to be heard. You just need to be present with them. And I think maybe incorporating a bit of that breath work, I think, could be really powerful. I think could be incredibly powerful to help regulate and allow you to feel. Because sometimes, even with me, when I feel things, these feelings or emotion and sort of arising, and sometimes you feel guilty. I feel guilty for the way I'm feeling sometimes, and then I sort of question, actually, these are emotions that are happening for a reason. So I stop and I question, I'd be curious, why am I feeling these? So it's, again, having that intelligence rather than reacting, because I think we are in a culture of always reacting, and actually just stopping and questioning. And I think that's a really powerful message there about being curious. Stop, be curious. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Instead of allowing to be guided by those emotions in a negative way, but also just sitting and just observing.
Yeah, 100%. That's where meditation comes into play, where this basic idea of finding a little separation between the reaction and yourself, to just see, okay, this is going on, but it's not me. It's like, okay, this is how am I feeling it. I am able to experience it. I don't have to push it away, but still, like, to have this little space is powerful.
So you're not, in a way, do you think then, on the spiritual side, do you think emotions are of the body and it allows the spirit to express using those emotions? Or do you think emotions are a symptom of the spirit? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that way. And the body helps us to really fully feel them, because all of the senses, all of these symptoms that are happening in the body, that just help us to really feel them intensely. Like, without the body, there would probably not be much we can feel. But like,
Yes, so true. It'd be very boring, wouldn't it? We're just walking around like zombies, like robots. But I think maybe in the future, do you think, as we call it, the collective? I mean, our podcast called The Collective Awakening. Do you think in the
beautiful.
future that I call it emotional maturity? Do you think we will mature our emotions in a maybe a higher state? Do you think that's something that we're all maybe working towards for the future?
Yeah, but I feel like this is this thing that is really happening. And we also, or Chris, or you said also this about our parents, and they not having that capacity. They also didn't have this amount of information about the whole situation like we do now. And so, like, these ideas of a real man doesn't cry, and you don't have to be sad, like, these have been going on for generations. We've been carrying that idea of trying to disconnect from emotions for so long. But now that changes a lot. and we learn how to, yeah, be
Yeah,
guided by the emotions instead of being controlled by them also.
yeah, absolutely. And I really like the way you put that about no emotions are bad, letting those emotions flow. And also, as we do this work that way, that it can be very positive for our friends and family as well, for our parents, to that ripple effect it can have, where they can start to release that emotion. Uh, I,
Mm.
I can't count how many times I've sat with people and they start to cry, and the first thing they do is apologize. So already
Yeah.
we're being shameful and apologizing for just releasing emotion. But
Mm.
what ways would you say? I know you mentioned already the practice of yoga, but what ways would you advise people in expressing and releasing that emotion
Mm.
and
Yes.
expressing it as well? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's different for different emotions and for different people also. Just like how meditation is also, for sometimes the seated meditation is perfect, but for other people, like movement or training or yoga is a lot more beneficial because they can really, we can we can use the body to, yeah, to move through these emotions and let out anger, for example, or dancing. For me, dancing is a really big part. Going for techno parties, just dancing and really moving the body, allowing the body to move freely. And yeah, this is a powerful thing to use the body and like shaking, which is also like such a uh, ingrained mechanism that animals and that we also share, to that we can use to release these emotions again, and not hold them in the body, get them stuck there.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And it's something even we've noticed in our practices more and more, that you will feel as you meet people that you don't need rest, you don't need to lie down, you need to move your body,
Yeah,
you need to dance, you need to sing, you need to
exactly.
play whatever music resonates with you as loud as you can.
Yeah,
And we are living in this time of, call this podcast Collective Awakening. That's how we sort of raise the vibrations of moving and dancing, which is one of the oldest expressions of
hmm,
communications as well, that dance and movement.
yeah, all around the world also. Yeah, we all got the same idea.
Yeah.
Moving.
And I feel that's important to mention in a time of, in some ways, a separation, that there's so much that we hold in common around this world with one
Mhm.
another in this way when we come together.
100%.
So just delving a little bit more, what I actually saw that it's a big part of your work, the yoga practice. So how did you sort of begin on that journey in particular?
Hmm. Basically, for me, for me, yoga, I got into it quite early. Like, thankfully to my parents, actually, they didn't fully went through with it, but somehow it got stuck with me, or like it came back around quite often, until at some point I just used it as a really nice um, balancing to the gym. And then I got more into it. I learned more about holistic health, so understanding about the connections and the like this kind of positive vicious circle that we get between taking care of our body, feeding it with the right things, moving it in beautiful ways, and strengthening it, so that also helps us with the mental space, and the other way around as well. And so I just wanted to learn more about the physiology, and especially also yoga uh, has so much to do more than just the poses that we know of, but it has a lot to do with breath work, with meditation. And so I wanted to learn more about it, to kind of integrate that into my work. But it felt so natural, so because of the meditative work that I do already. it kind of felt so natural and so good for me. So I really started to just teach yoga lessons here as well, because yeah, it just worked out so well.
Yeah, Fran. Again, I feel like you touched on a good point there, which is mentioning a calling to certain work. And I feel the last 10 years, there's been an awful lot of people that have felt a call to some form of holistic light work, healing work in some
Mm.
modality, bringing that forward more than ever. And when was the first moment that you really felt that call to really fully step into that?
Mm. Looking back, it was always there in some way. Always I wanted to be a doctor at some point, but I also always uh, had this sense of trying to help other people with their problems. I loved when people told me their secrets, and like this all just came out through the inner child work as well. But uh, changing a tipping point was definitely that plant medicine ceremony where I was really aligning with, okay, what is like there we had this exercise of, okay, you're turning the page in your book of life basically and finding that new chapter. So what is it, what is the topic? And it was like my way, finding my way, what I actually wanted to do. And I was still working at BMW in the car manufacturer and in IT, so it was a whole different thing. But yeah, in the end, it allowed me to do exactly what I do now, because I then was looking, having my ears open and starting with nutrition coaching first. But that's also what I always share with the people is finding that vision, how life is supposed to feel like, how you want to move through life. And when you start to align with that, then and take the first steps out of the comfort zone, or take steps in any direction that feels like some calling. I wanted to open a restaurant, that's why I started with the nutrition coaching. But that's just like these even if it's detours in that sense, that's how I just got more and more into a clearer vision of, okay, this is actually what I've always been interested in. And sharing that with other people is such a powerful thing for us, right? And so learning
Yeah.
more about how life actually works, how everything comes together, how that works out for me, and then seeing how I can share that with other people.
Yeah, and
Then
I love it.
I
Sorry,
suppose it's sorry, I'll just mention one thing there that again saying about that's a real fundamental point of wherever we find ourselves in life, what we're drawn to, they are giving us the skills and experience for what is to come next. So every single portion of that, you do find an awful lot of people who end up working in some kind of healing modalities that they have found their way through at some point have wanted to be a doctor, a nurse, or been drawn to that area. But it's as you're talking, that it's just everywhere we find ourselves is an experience that will be useful for the future. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
yeah, definitely.
The way I know, listening to you there, you can feel the passion about how you unfolded. I call it the unfoldment of the flower, the inner lotus flowers. Life's a journey. There is no left or right. We're constantly unfolding and growing, and like a stepping stone. But I just want to touch upon a little bit about sort of going back into the inner child work. So if I came to see you, what would a session look like? Because there'll be people that'll be listening and they
Mhm.
might be wanting to reach out to you, that might want to maybe do a bit of that inner child work. What is some of the practices or some of the techniques that you would like to share? What's the first
Mhm.
sort of thing that you look at
Mm.
if I came to see you and I wanted to maybe look at my inner child and how
Yeah,
I could tap into that?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like a beautiful symbol for that whole work is like this infinity symbol, where we are, just like I said before, we are not just going straight into the past just to stir up that whatever is there, but we always start in the beginning. We start in the beginning, in the center of the present moment, which is the guide to understanding what we actually want to do, what we want to understand more about, and to see, okay, what is it that's not working well? What are the situations in life that are recurring, like we also said before? What are the really emotional situations that are triggered in our current life? And then we start already by that. It's a really meditative process of understanding what is it that is going on there. How does the body react? How can we get in contact with the emotions that are triggered, the beliefs about about the situation at work, like not being good enough, not doing good enough work, or in the relationship of, yeah, this other person never, or I'm not getting the respect that I deserve, or I'm not being heard. How does it feel like? How can we experience that in the body, stay with that for a while until this emotion gets softer, and not yeah, we're not trying to push it away, but still, when we just be present, be conscious with that emotion that is flowing, it kind of gets softer until end. And at that point, I will be just often just asking, okay, where did the inner child that you once were experience exactly that emotion for the first time, when it was just too much to handle? We didn't have anybody to help us process it. And so that's where these images come up, or maybe situations. There's also always options to do that in a more safer way, so to avoid that re-traumatizing, but still feeling these emotions that are still in unprocessed in your body. And when we connect to that representation of our childhood, then we can help it go through the same emotions like we did before, but now in connection and representatively for the inner child that was yeah, left alone in that situation, or didn't have that capacity to feel it. And so that's where we just when we think about, like, how would we be to your own child, or to a nephew and niece, like, we would be so compassionate, we would be loving, we would hold the presence. And and that's what we're then trying to do in that meditative state, just allowing whatever visions or emotions come up, feel that, allow that to move again, and see that this energy that was basically like frozen because it couldn't be processed, be allowed to open up, move again. And there's so much energy that we right now don't have for our current day-to-day life, that we can then move again, move to the present moment. And then also we're coming back to the symbol, moving into the future, into that vision of how we actually want to be in that situation, how we want to be, how we want to feel with that relationship, or how do we want to feel at work, really feeling our own value, feeling, okay, I'm actually heard. It's just that child that believed it didn't matter, or it wasn't good enough. But yeah, understanding that and also using that neuroplasticity of the brain to build that new pathway of that new supporting belief. And then the work also happens a lot outside of the session, after, in day-to-day life, when we just keep on practicing that in the morning meditation, for example, or in every situation that comes up, then to be exactly how we want to be, more and more, until it gets more natural and more easygoing, and that old path loses its power more and more.
It's the integration that sometimes feels the
Exactly.
hardest, doesn't it? I mean, you talked
Mm,
about ceremonies,
100%.
and when you're in a ceremony, when you're doing any kind of healing, it's great, you're around other people, and then the real work, and it doesn't have to be difficult, is, again, in my own personal experience, you've given the teachings, you recognize the patterns, you go into the uncomfortableness that, I don't like that, facing that uncomfortable pattern, and allowing it to be heard, being present. and then trying to reprogramming those old beliefs. For me, it has been the most difficult. And even now, some of the stuff that I've gone through, only after 2-3 years have I now feel I fully integrated that one inner child lesson. And now I feel that feeling. So it's took me a long time. Maybe I'm taking a bit longer than other people. I like to do, I'm a typical Capricorn, I like to do things my own way. But just going back to the integration, sort of what kind of advisement would you give to people? I mean, the things we say is, not to overthink things, to do your best. Just, what kind of advisement would you give to people that are doing that work? How important is the integration, the work that they do after your sessions and things? What kind of patterns? Because we can quite easily fall back into the old patterns again, can't we?
Yeah, 100%. It's a lot about being compassionate as well. Again, being compassionate with yourself when we think about that neuroplasticity, or like this image of how the brain works which is in repetition, and like you can imagine this highway in the brain, because you've been going through the same limiting beliefs, or like, and the situations then even repeat and strengthen. So it's just so natural for the brain to move in these paths. And in the ceremonies we might, or just in meditation or vision work, we create this new forest path, which is just really really small, and it's kind of hard to get through. But as we repeat that in everyday life, or in morning meditations, which is a powerful thing for me, just how you're starting up in the morning, just aligning already with that vision of how you want to feel, how that feels, especially, and then feeling that in the somatic sense in the body. That's how the brain works, and that's how these new pathways gain more power, more stability, and what gets more easier to choose. Also, then even at some point it just gets second nature, and these old paths, through ceremonies, through the work, the integration work, or inner child work in the sessions, they lose a lot of power already. So we just have to strengthen these new paths and build them into these new highways that we would rather move on.
So what's your thoughts on the belief systems? That's a massive topic, and it's something that I'm very big on. When we're children, would you agree with it? We can be quite receptive to our parents' conditioning. We've got the external conditioning, we've got parents' conditioning, and they create belief systems, don't they? You could have a stepfather, a father that says, "Don't cry, you're not good enough." You believe that, you could believe that, and that becomes a belief, can't it? And you carry that belief on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, it all connects to these emotional wounds. Actually, either we're trying to create these patterns or these strategies to avoid these feelings altogether, or when these emotions come up, that's how we learned at some point, like this disconnection, like I talked about, this disconnection from the body, like zoning out, was the not appropriate but the safest option for us to not be so overwhelmed. And so these are these patterns and limiting beliefs, which all go back through to these emotional woundings that have been there. And that's like we cannot change the past, but we can really turn that into wisdom and learn from that, understanding that this was the path, this was the best option for us to be safe, but we can move on from that and find other ways of being with these emotions, or being compassionate with ourselves.
I love it also that sometimes I've always had this perception before I spoke to you today, and this is the beauty of these podcasts, because I never ever stop learning, and we never say, "Oh, that's it, we know everything." So for me, I always thought, "All right, go straight to the past, go back to your inner child, rip out, look at that, and do that work." But actually, it's about being present. It's about looking at your life now, and I think that's really powerful because I think that sets intention. Because I think a lot of people don't know what intention is. They don't look at it, and I think we're in a time of looking at things differently, having a different perspective. That this old way of thinking actually is not serving the human spirit, and actually changing our perspective in a very compassionate way. That's what I'm feeling from you, is looking at things in a compassionate and a loving way, rather than right, go to your shadow, look at your parents in this real forceful fight and flight mode, but in a very subtle and a beautiful way, which I find very inspirational. And those that are listening, I'm sure would agree as well.
Yeah, that's why also these plant ceremonies can be so intense, because you're forced into it, but they also connect so beautiful. That's why I hope to do that in my future, also to kind of connect that in this way, because like for as many people, like they go back into this situation of this adverse experiences, but they, like, from the experiences that I've heard of, they see it from above, like this kind of, like the whole situation also in connection to the perpetrator, for example, and this also goes to not finding guilt, or not blaming or shaming the caregivers or whatever, because they just get that same conditioning, the same emotional wounds. They just kept continuing. And so when we, with now our adult and more conscious awareness, we just look through the whole situation, and we then also even see the other person's view. And it's just a powerful thing to do.
I agree completely with that. When we talk about, particularly with plant medicines, can assist greatly in viewing those parts of our lives. But what I found very powerful is taking us away from what can be the victim state as well. Sometimes we're not viewing ourselves, and you touched on that a little bit there. And nobody's the victim, nobody's the perpetrator. We're just kind of passing on that hurt. So as we do this work, we're kind of bringing it to a close, and I really feel what was mentioned there about being in the present being very important, because I don't know if you'd agree with this, Cedric, but sometimes when we look too far in the past, and there's a danger of being stuck there. As always, I feel the approach should be, what do I need for that to assist me now? What impact do I want that to have in my life now? Not to get stuck in that moment and be constantly going back to it every single moment, as I wouldn't see that as too healthy. I don't know if you'd agree with that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, presence is the way to also get yourself out of the, whenever it's too intense. But basically, from what I've seen, is in the work that I do, is like also somehow the soul or the mind has somehow this way of understanding of this is actually what we are able to handle. So it rarely or ever shows up things that are too intense that we cannot fully work through. In psychedelics settings, it might be different, not sure, but always finding yourself back. That's also where yoga and meditation comes into place, to really help us to feel that grounding again, and not be just fully in getting lost in the past, but finding yourself back here.
Yeah,
I think, can I just interject there? And it's something that I was actually shown in grandmother ayahuasca ceremony a very long time ago, of the importance of being an observer. Learning in a way like an eagle, rising above, watching, be the observer. And I think, looking back, even in my own reflection of how emotions do control the person, do you find that with a lot where how emotions in our everyday life controls us, and maybe learning, finding those techniques to observe those emotions, feel those emotions rather than being guided by them all the time? I think that's very difficult, I think, for a lot of people in a reflection to the world and a non-judgmental perspective. I think you just have to, I don't, particularly where we live, you know, culturally, the different countries, different villages, different communities create different energies, but it seems everybody seems to be reacting to their emotions and projecting. I think there's a lot of projection of that hurt in the outside world, and that's very, I guess that's a reflection even to us as observers as well.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of practice that goes with it, just like meditation in general. Allowing that space to strengthen, allowing our ability to be with the emotions, and just kind of having that a little space before reacting, and rather than that responding really from that core afterwards of not just being triggered, reactive. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just want to say there as well, you know, my next question there is, as we do that inner work on, or where we, you know, when we talk about inner child work, where does forgiveness lie then? Where does self-forgiveness and forgiveness for others, where does that practice come into? Do you find that a lot in the inner child work?
Yeah, it goes together with that compassion, and also not finding, stepping away from that blame again when we go through that these processes, and then we see the perpetrator again, but we see that they were hurt, that they are also carrying their things, and it's not about what is the word, not promoting, but like not condoning their behavior, but more about understanding, and then understanding that also it is our responsibility and our ability also to heal that, and uh, not keep that in our system, this shaming and this pain, because we don't need that apology. Definitely, we have everything in the system to let go of these situations, and then that's where forgiveness happens. It's basically a gift to ourselves, that we don't need that making up, or that apology from that other person.
Interesting, very interesting. And it quite often I find in this type of work, particularly we mentioned the plant medicine work quite a few times on this episode, is it assists us in, because where we can find, we go around things, and I don't feel that's a long-term solution. When we go around something, it's going to reoccur somewhere down the road. And I feel like the plant medicine work, and particularly with Cambo, it allows us to go up and through it,
Yeah.
and really shift, and feel that as well, feel that freedom, like you say, when with any form of forgiveness, letting go, it is taking that weight off our shoulders. And feeling that lightness and saying, look what I'm carrying. Even many years ago through this work, personally myself, I realized conflicts that we have with people, and he's like, it's just not worth it. It's just unless anybody's done something like to put your life in danger or something, you really need to be careful. But if it's day-to-day squabbles or things, it's just not worth carrying it. Let it go. If you really don't resonate with people, you don't have to have them in your life. Just wish them well and go on your way. But I felt a good point that you made earlier was looking actually at people through the lens of how we would view people we loved in our lives. So perhaps that person that we come across that we might struggle to understand, being curious and looking at, what if that was my son or my daughter, my mother, my father, somebody I really love, how would I approach this? And I feel that's a really lovely way to approach something. It allows us to not step into reaction and step back to the heart center a little bit.
Yeah, beautifully
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So,
And also, yeah, not just also being curious of why it happens to you also, or why you, because then it always, it has something to do with us, which, because like even the perpetrator has this kind of vision for the person he can get his power on in some way, like somehow this subconscious, yeah, it's not, yeah, can also just invite that other person to, yeah, in some way, yeah.
yeah, I think understanding what you mean, and then I suppose it goes back to, everything for a reason. Every person, every situation is a mirror reflection. It's showing us something that we have. Something I'm trying to step into more and more now is when we see something, a particular personality trait in other people, that you are seeing that side, it is being it's very obvious for a reason, because you've got something to learn from that. So every situation's a wonderful teacher, isn't it? And I think that changes our approach from not being a victim, not even being a victim of life, realizing, this is a wonderful experience we're having, and I know we mentioned earlier coming back to the body, and for me, that's why we come back to this earth. We couldn't miss the opportunity for the experience.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel it'd be a good opportunity, because we've covered, really important subjects here, is sort of expanding things on the world. And really, we've been through a lot of changes in the world. I would say the last 5 years feel like more like 10 or 20 years, actually, with what's happened. So much is happening, and so much is stepping forward, and in a very inspirational way. People like yourself and others really stepping into their divine purpose and sharing. How do you visualize the world now and what is happening right now?
That's a really good question. That's an interesting one. I really hope we, and also feel that in some way, the people are getting younger and younger, trying to understand more about what they're actually here to do and what they want to share. See that there are so many options to bring more of your purpose of whatever you have to share, because I'm so sure that everybody has something to share. It doesn't always have to be like a full-time job, but there's so many different ways that we can bring something forth from ourselves that we are here to share. And yeah, that volatility also, that everything is kind of not 100% safe or sure, also might help the people to understand, okay, I might then actually do what I'm here to do, or like try to find what I'm here to do, and share that in some way, and use the technology that is available to get that done, to get that implemented, and to be connected to, like we are now, just randomly connected through some kind of situation. This is just there's just amazing opportunities that are coming up right now, and that they will come up more and more, and help us to bring something into this experience, into this life that we want to share.
Yeah.
We're trusting in the synchronicities, the universe, us meeting in this way and connecting in this way. And I'm hoping we'll do more podcasts in the future and sharing. And like you said, I think technology has, a lot of people talk about it very negatively. And I actually try to look at things a little bit more of a positive light, that actually technology has really brought connected with us as in a very beautiful way, particularly since the COVID situation a few years. It's really cultivated and brought very like-minded people together. And I think you've got a really good message there. If you do have a gift, go out and share it. Don't hold it back. Embrace it. Share the wisdom and do that work, whatever that might be. If it's just an hour, a bit of teaching, if it's a full-time job, which me and Chris are very lucky that we do this full-time.
Yeah.
And just very, my heart's full of gratitude. That's why I say, even just speaking today and things that have triggered in me, just listening, and that's really what you want to do as well, don't you, Cedric? Is a triggering people. We trigger one another to see, actually, are there still wounds there? And like, oh yeah, there is something still there. I need to maybe look out. Oh no, not again. I thought, no, not again. But it's another opportunity to learn and to grow. That's the way I try to look at it.
Magnificent. Yeah, that's what we're here to do, to help each other grow. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's ever unfolding, and it is wonderful to connect this way, and the years that it's been happening over technology and Zoom and all these parts, there is a huge positive to them, and as Stephen said, you learn every time. There's not one podcast we've ever done where you don't walk away and go, oh, that's really made me think. That's really tweaked something in me. And I feel we all have those moments still where we go, oh, no, I'm avoiding again. I've avoided that. But I always feel that the way I would see it is, it's like building up a toolbox. So we have these tools. So when we feel something, we go, oh, I'm not lost, and I can navigate this.
Exactly.
And I feel that awareness is a great gift in this time as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and what you've had to share with us. Do you have anything, just as we sort of close the episode, that you'd want to share with our listeners? Any words that you would feel quite important as we close this episode?
Yeah, I would say we touched on a lot today. I just feel like for the listeners, for everybody, it's just being so curious again, finding that curiosity, that childlike curiosity, more and more again, to just we always wanted to learn, we wanted to understand about ourselves, about the world, and that's what we can do again, and that helps us in so many ways in understanding about our lives, understanding what we came here to share, what we can learn from every situation where we meet people, and just being open, being curious.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful words to leave with, because that being curious is, and that word has come up so many times this year with different people I've spoken to. So for me, that is like a channeling when that happens. We're all channeling that's something coming that's needed in the collective, is be curious. If something happens in life, stop, breathe, be curious. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us. A huge gratitude for that. Really enjoyed this episode. For those listening, if you would like to connect with Cedric more and his work, if you'd like to learn a little bit more, we will be sharing links wherever you're listening or watching this podcast, and that you'll be able to contact him. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody listening. Please continue to support this podcast, and we're going to keep doing more episodes. As simple as that. So thank you very much. Sending lots of love to everyone till we speak again.
Thank you so much, guys.